polka dot door, the polka dot door. Let's peep through the polka dot door. Songs and stories and so much more. Through the polka dot door, this is the time we always say. Get ready, get set for Imagination Day. We'll tell some tales, we'll pretend and play. So come in the polka dot way.
Hello and welcome to the season 2 finale of today's podcast. Oh my goodness, we are so excited to have the legendary Cindy Cook and Jed MacKay. The Cindy Cook, the longest running host of the Polka Dot Door, multiple live shows. Just, if you think of Polka Dot Door, you think of Cindy. End of story. That's just the way that goes, right? And we have Jed MacKay down there, writer, producer of the show. You can't get any better than these two. Welcome, 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 welcome.
Happy to be here.
Wow, I'm the little inner child of me is just sitting here, just vibrating, just sitting here talking with Cindy, because and Polkaroo, and there's Polkaroo, right?
I had to do that.
Yeah, and it's not even Imagination Day. And like I said, the inner child of me is just sitting here vibrating, talking with you guys. This entire season of today's podcast has been pretty much about the Polka Dot Door. I've had this is the third episode to
yes, they've been good. They've been really good episodes.
Thank you very much, and we're very honored to talk to both of you. We really are, because you're the longest running host of the show. You know what I mean?
Other than Dennis, unfortunately.
Well, yes, other than Dennis, but you're the longest running, living host, unfortunately.
Good.
Like Dennis, I would have loved to have Dennis on the show.
Oh, I know, and he would have been funny.
That would have been cool right there. I would have loved to talk with him for a little while.
He would have done it.
But let's get right into the interview. It's enough of me talking. I want to hear stories from you guys. I'm going to start out with my one that I always ask. Cindy, what was it like auditioning for the show?
Okay. Well, it was very odd because I just spent a year doing children's theater with a company in St. Catharines, the whole year. And I got home and I didn't have a job, and I looked at the Polka Dot Door on TV and I went, these actors are horrible. They are talking down to the children. They're not doing a good job, and the writing is dreadful. So I wrote the producer of the show, I guess it was Ted Conybeare. I just wrote to TV Ontario and I said, I could do a better job and I would like to audition for this show. And my agent called me and said, you have an audition for the Polka Dot Door. I didn't know anything about the show. I had never even seen it. So I went in, and the first thing I did was drop Bear on his head. I mean, literally, he fell on his head. And I just started talking to him. I picked him up and I forgot the whole script, and I started talking to him, and Ted Conybeare was there and he loved that. So I got the job. That was it. And
the rest is history.
Well, it was great. I mean, but I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, it was not a normal audition, but he liked the fact that you could have a normal conversation with a bear, I guess. If that makes any sense.
Do you have any stories about Cindy on set there, Jed?
Oh God.
The funny thing is that my me being in or my involvement with the show, because it's on the production side, it's a little bit different because I'm always looking for, we're more concerned about camera shots and scripts and so many things like that.
Yeah.
So, I really I was so much more concerned with the schedule and what we're doing and getting shots and all the stuff we have to do.
Jed had to do everything, though. I mean, he was watching the script. He was making sure we weren't screwing up the songs if they weren't written by him. If they were, I mean, he had to do everything, but he was on the floor. And I'll remind you of something, Jed MacKay.
Okay.
When we got tired, it didn't matter who I was working with, we would drive you insane because we get the giggles. Do you not remember that? I would start laughing, and then whoever I was working with would start laughing. And we'd go on for 15 minutes. We couldn't stop giggling. And Jed would be so nice. Kevin, you'd be in the background going, oh, just give them a minute. Just give them a minute. They'll come to, but we were rolling on the ground. I mean, we were hysterical because it was so tense, doing the whole week. It was very hard work. It was very stressful. And then we just lost it. And poor Jed, he'd go, oh my God, are they ever going to, I could remember his face to this day. Are they ever going to stop laughing? And we couldn't because we just lost it. It was really fun. It was my most fun.
That actually is a pretty good segue. Your favorite memory of Polka Dot Door, you must have a ton from the show itself.
Well, it's kind of rude. It was with my very first year with Dennis Simpson, and we were playing with stick puppets, and I was supposed to say, Porky, you are a very good oinker. He was a pig puppet, and Dennis was behind in the puppet gallery working the puppet. He was a little pig puppet, and Dennis always said, don't worry, if you get this mixed up, they will cut, don't you worry. Because I said, Dennis, I'm having a lot of trouble saying, Porky, you're a good oinker. He said, don't worry about it. So when I did the segment, I said, Oinky, you're a really good porker. And he was behind the curtain, started giggling, and he's going, yeah, Oinky, you're a really good porker. Oh, you're a really good porker. And we thought they would cut, and it didn't cut. And you can't go on TV saying you're a really good porker. You can't do that. Mm-hmm. So we just assumed that they would cut, and I'm giggling. He's laughing. And finally, he popped his head around the thing and he said, surely you're cutting. I'm not going on TV saying you're a really good porker, and neither is Cindy Cook. So they finally did an edit, thank God. But it was very fun. It was close. They would have let it go through.
Wow. Really good porker. That's funny.
Well, he was funny. I mean, it was a little, Dennis was great.
You know what? It's when I think of the Polka Dot Door, and this is just being honest, and not just because you're on my screen. I think of you, and I think of Dennis. We've been working. Me and you, we've been working tirelessly to get episodes up and to get the shots for this thing, and a lot of the shows that I have up on YouTube right now for Polka Dot Door, as a couple of them have Dennis in it, and I watched them all, and I'm sitting here thinking, I remember these shows, I remember them, and it just brings back a lot of memories for the Polka Dot.
Well, we had a lot of good performers on that show. I mean, weren't they, Jed? They were. I mean, Dennis was terrific, but we had some good ones. When Jed took over, he got really good performers in there. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I think definitely. I definitely agree. And I've said before on one of the earlier ones that we did on Polka Dot Door, what it took to be a host, and for my opinion, what it took to be a host of Polka Dot Door was this remarkable combination of talents you had to have, plus the ability to improvise. But right. Most importantly, the ability to be able to talk to children through the camera, as if you were really in the room with them, and as if you were kind of, almost maybe a member of their family or a friend, but that non-condescending, what would you say, the sort of feeling sometimes that you think that performers sometimes feel a little bit above it all, like I'm doing this because I've got to do this kid show to have a gig and all that. And
if they don't believe in it, then it's not going to come across.
So I think Polka Dot Door overall, even before I was producing it, did a pretty good job of getting people. That was one of my real focuses, was to get people that could do that. So you had to be able to, as you said before, you had to be able to sing. You had to memorize. You really be good at memorizing lines. They came at you. The shows came at you. 5 shows in 3 days. It was a lot of material to be doing. And plus the camera angles, plus you have to be able to do acting. You've got to be able, playing with the toys, I think, was a skill. It's very difficult.
And the crafts.
And the crafts, and all the crafts. Trying to keep straight what you're doing with the toilet tissue roll and the straw.
Oh, I know.
Paper,
Oh, so listen, I agree. But you know what? I have to say this, Kevin, because Jed was a very good writer as well. I mean, he wrote a lot of the scripts and a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the songs, and he was noticeably because I think Jed was a performer as well. He knew how to make it very natural sounding, because it's really tough to do what Jed just said if the script is not natural. I mean, you can't say it if it's not right. And what Dennis was good at improvising, and when he was working with Ted Conybeare, luckily I was lucky to work with him at the beginning, so I got away with it too. Dennis got away with changing words that didn't sound natural. And he was the only guy that did it. Ted Conybeare let him get away with murder because he knew that Dennis would make it sound more natural. And so then by association, I got to do a little bit of that too, because some of the early writing was not as good as Jed's. I mean, it was just not very natural sounding. So anyway, that's just a compliment to Jed, because he was very, very natural writer.
Yeah, and also I think that we've talked about this too, but we would hear comments from people who, usually adults who watch the show with their kids or something, who would not believe we actually wrote the show.
Yes, I know.
They thought it was just being made up as everybody went along, which I thought was a tremendous testament to how good everybody was at making it seem that way, because that's what it was meant to be like. It's meant to feel like that. But as Kevin knows, because I think we mentioned this before, it was actually very tightly scripted.
Oh, it was.
And so we were keeping track of what everyone was saying, because you could only use the vocabulary was very important for that age group.
Yeah.
You had to make sure you could express. We would tackle any topic. We weren't worried about the topics.
Right.
The language had to be simple enough for a 3 or 4-year-old to really get the idea of what you're talking about. And that takes a special writing skill as well to be able to do that.
I agree, Jed. I mean, but you did it really well, because and also the songs were fun. I mean, you wrote fun songs, The
songs were fun. Yeah, we had some great. I think Cindy, you worked with both. I think you worked with both Herbie Helbig and John Arpin.
Yes, right? I did, and they were both wonderful. I mean, John was just fantastic, Kevin. I mean, he would just entertain us in between. It was really hard to concentrate on, I'd have to go aside and look at the next scene coming up, because, you had to know which cameras and refresh it every time. But John would be playing all these songs, and it would be really hard to work because you just wanted to hear what he had to play. They were really fun. But the specials were fun too. Your friend did one of the specials. I can't remember his name. And he was married to a lady that was on the show at one point. He lived up in my area, north of Toronto.
Are you talking, a friend of mine did the specials?
Yes.
Bruce, you mean did the music or what?
Bruce, yes. He did
Bruce Lee did the music.
That's right. And he was great too.
Bruce is fantastic. And he also he actually, subsequent to, or actually at the same time as Polka Dot Door, he and I were also writing the music for Join In. So he was the music director on Join In, did a phenomenal job on that.
Yeah, he was very good. I enjoyed working with him a lot.
Yeah, he was great.
Very lucky.
I think that was only on, if I'm right, was it only on the camp special, or was it on both of them?
I think it was only the one.
Yeah, because there was the camp and then there was the birthday party. But I think the birthday party has a rhythm track on it, so maybe he worked on that too.
Yeah, he was great. He was a good musical director, because unfortunately John Arpin had died, I think, at that point.
John died in 2007.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so he was the guy. John, there are only 2 people. Herbie did it till 1985, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
John did it for the rest of the run.
Oh, that's right. It was Herbie that died. Yeah, because I went to Herbie's funeral. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Oh dear, I did that for a long time. That show was. I did that for a long time. It was really fun, and it changed, And Ted Conybeare was a riot. Did you ever meet him, Jed?
Well, I wrote when Ted was producing. I was writing. So,
I didn't know that. So you knew what he was like then.
We had a lot of chats over the scripts and things like that, and so of course.
He was fantastic, because he thought Polkaroo was his baby. I mean, he was very protective of Polkaroo. And if one of the actors made the mistake of doing Polkaroo wrong, Ted would come on the set and be Pokeroo. I mean, he'd just be Pokeroo
wait a second.
until that guy got it right. And it was so funny because he was the best Pokeroo that ever lived. I mean,
there's a way of doing Pokeroo wrong?
Oh, yes. According to Ted Cody Bear, there was definitely a way of doing it wrong. And this idiot man here, my dear friend Jed MacKay, made me be Pokeroo once. Was any other woman ever Pokeroo, Jed?
I think Nina was at the very start. I think Nina Keogh told me one time that she was Pokeroo once.
Oh, that was
don't get me wrong. She might see this and correct me. As a matter of fact, she probably will see this and correct me if I'm wrong. But
oh no, it's very possible, but it hadn't been done for years until Jed did it, and it was a terrible idea. Because I was Pokeroo. You do this, and then you have to race off afterwards and get back into your clothes. And I came out and I was all bedraggled. I looked like I'd been through a rainstorm, and I said, "What? Pokeroo was here," and I missed him again. And I mean, my makeup's going down my face. It was just I was cursing Jed under my breath, going, "Thanks, Jed."
That's funny.
That was the only time. I think Jed learned his lesson after that.
I wish we knew what episode that was, because I would definitely put that up on the screen right now.
Oh, it was awful.
What episode that was. Oh, man. Now, we were talking earlier about guests.
Right.
I've seen, I don't remember anyone. It has happened because I've seen the episodes, but I don't remember any guests coming on the show, like outside people other than the two hosts. I personally don't remember that.
Oh yeah, we did, didn't
we?
we?
There were lots.
Who was your favorite ones? Do you have favorite ones?
My favorite one was the guy with the farm animals. He had a little baby lamb, and I got to hold this little baby lamb, and my God, that thing was so cute. I didn't want to ever let it go. I guess it must have been Animal Day, but Jed invited this man with a farm to bring all of his animals in, and that was my very favorite.
Yeah. We actually had a number of guests on different days, and one of them, again, we wouldn't shy away from anything. And I remember specifically, we had Jane Bennett, who is a jazz player. She was on one day, and she came in to demonstrate and show sort of the rudiments of jazz, how you could take a song and play around with it and stuff like that. And here's a little story that I love, because some people would say, well, isn't that a bit aiming a little high for the preschool audience? But a couple of years later, a parent told me the story that they were watching Sunday afternoon in the park or something. It's a show on PBS or something. And it's jazz. It's a jazz show. People are in the park in the summer. It's lovely. Well, they were watching, and their child, 4 or 5-year-old child, came in and sort of stood there watching too, and listened to music. He said, "Do you like the music?" And the child said, "Uh-huh." He said, "Well, you don't know what this is, probably." And the child said, "That's jazz." And they said, "How did you know?" It's, "It was on Polka Dot Door."
Oh, isn't that great, Jed?
And so I love that, because when the guests we had on were, Polka Dot Door was all about I was kind of saying yes in every way to every child, no matter what the child's circumstances were. So if you're a child who liked athletics, there was always something that we could relate to that. If you liked art, there was that. If there were crafts, you like that. If you like music,
absolutely.
And we always tried to show that when Cindy talked about the crafts, and I think I may have mentioned this before, Kevin, but we had very, very talented props people on the show. I mean, they were fantastic props people who could make anything you asked for out of Kleenex boxes and, straws and whatever.
And then expect us to make the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And the fun thing is, though, that we always made a point of making sure it would never look like a talented props person had made it.
Right.
The key was to do it so it looked like, or it looked something like it would look like when the child tried to duplicate it afterwards at home.
Right.
And so then they're encouraged to do more and do it, because they don't have this impossible thing they can't get to.
And that was really smart of you, because I mean they would make us do it, and of course it never looked great. I mean, it didn't look perfect, but that the kids love that.
It's not supposed to look perfect.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's supposed to look like a normal person made it, and it worked like a charm.
Yeah, and any kids would do it if they tried it. Theirs would look something like that, or maybe even better. But the point is, they'd be encouraged to do more.
Absolutely, and
so
learn
that's
more.
why.
I mean,
yeah. So and in the little acting out things we did exactly the same. It's just like a child play acting at home.
Yeah, exactly. It was fun, but the guests were incredible. I mean, we did have really cool guests. I remember one of the guys was I'm an animal lover, so I mean all of those segments I just adored. And I lied. My favorite show, and I'm grateful to Jed to this very day. I had 2 horses, and I boarded them up on a farm in King City, and Jed got the whole group to come up. I wish I remembered the name of that show, Jed. I've never been able to find it, but he used my farm, and we did a whole segment of Humpty and Dumpty visit a farm.
Yeah.
And they came up and visited my 2 horses, and my horse wouldn't cooperate, and it kept chewing up hay and spitting it at poor Jed MacKay, who was allergic to hay, apparently.
And horses.
And horses, and they fired my horse. And they used Jeff's horse, my husband's horse, who was a very well-behaved horse. So he was on the Polka Dot Door. It was just great. It was the highlight of my whole time on Polka Dot Door, was going to my farm with my horses.
Yeah, that was fun.
Because they were my horses.
Well, we got something in common, Jed. I'm allergic to horses and hay as well.
There we go. Yeah.
I found that out while working on Mackinac Island. That's not a spot to be if you're allergic.
No kidding, it's not. Yeah.
Wow, but nice though.
Yes, very nice. Very, very nice. Now, we were talking about music earlier. Now, Jed, you wrote a lot of the songs, lots of the legendary songs, and the songs that that are stuck in your head I'm 40 years old and I'm still hearing those songs in my head. But Cindy, you had the privilege of singing them. And boy, you have a beautiful voice. You really, really do. You really do. What was your favorite song to sing?
Oh, you know what? I'm not even going to attempt to answer, because they were so. I've been watching some of these videos, the old VHS tapes that I've had. All the songs that Jed wrote were unbelievably singable. I mean, they'd get stuck in your head, and you couldn't get them out for weeks. And now they're in my head too. But there's just many, 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 and they always fit in perfectly with what we're doing. So I mean, they were just. All of them. All of Jed's songs were great. To be honest, I had more fun doing Jed's songs. Sometimes they would pay for us to do like really expensive songs. I got to sing Oklahoma one time, I think. Something from Oklahoma. And I didn't have as much fun doing it as I did on any of Jed's songs, because there was more pressure. You had to, they were paying a lot of money for that song. I better sing it well. And Jed's songs were just more fun.
Yeah.
You should put an album out, Jed. Just call it Jed Songs.
I think we missed the boat on that one. I think we could have done probably every year. We could have done a series of Polka Dot Doors.
Oh, absolutely.
Opportunity missed on that one. Yeah. Well, I way back. I'm trying to think if you were in it. Way back, I wrote one of the stage shows, and this would have been before I was producing. So this would have been probably early 80s or late 70s even. I'm not sure, but I remember, I can't remember if I told this story before, Kevin, but we were doing it over maybe the Easter holidays, something like that. It was when it was being performed. It was being performed in a mall somewhere. I'm not quite sure where. A big mall somewhere. And so on Monday, we went out, and there was a guitar player, Cindy, was his name Kevin?
Kevin.
Yeah,
Kevin Nelson.
So we went out on the Monday. And we sort of thought, well, I think we'd rehearsed once or twice, but I can't remember, probably a couple of times. But we thought, well, Monday morning, 9:15, whatever time the first show is supposed to be, that's really going to kind of be our dress rehearsal run through. There'll be some kids there, but, we'll be able to see how the show works. And so we got there early. The show was probably at 10, I'm going to say, or 10:30. And we got there, and there was a lineup of kids and their mothers at 9. I mean, so far before we were supposed to go on.
Yeah.
And there were hundreds of kids there.
Yeah.
And so as at that point, since I was just writing a show, so I would come in, write a week or two and go do other things.
Right.
I was amazed at the power and popularity of the show then. And I have a feeling, Cindy, it was you and maybe Gary Richardson or somebody.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so we never, as soon as we finished, the shows were, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes long. There was some time limit they wanted them to be. And, lots of action, singing and fine poker and all that. And as soon as the show ended and the kids would start to leave, behind them was the next group of kids who were waiting to come in for a show that was really 2 hours away, probably.
Yeah.
It was tremendously popular. And so that was a real eye opener for me, actually. The show, yeah. I had no idea.
The show you wrote was really good. I mean, that was one of the good ones. I mean, some of the other ones weren't as great because they, but because you started off and with, and then you went on to produce the TV show as well. So, but you're right. I mean, those stage shows were just incredible. They were. Yeah. I mean, they would rush the stage to steal the toys.
Really?
We had to have security at the foot of the stage because they would come on the stage and run off with Marigold and Bear. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was just, you never knew what was going to happen. And that was the early years when Gary Richardson actually had it. Don Jones is a promoter and he did Mr. Dress Up. So he had all the top theaters across Canada and in Detroit and any of the border states. And I did all of the shows, and boy, they were thousands of people. I mean, we were filling Massey Hall and the big theaters all over Canada. And, it was a big deal. It was really, really fun. It was
I am happy to say that I have been to a few of those live shows.
Oh, because we did the Sioux.
Yes, I was there at a couple of the live shows. You sold out our White Pines Theater.
Yes.
You sold out our White Pines Theater. I was there.
Oh, it was wonderful.
I also seen you perform at our Roberta Bondar Pavilion down on the waterfront.
Right.
I've seen you perform there. I actually spoke to you back then.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Well, that was my own show, though. That went on after.
That was your show.
Yeah, because Polka Dot Door was, luckily, Jed, I loved, and Jed thought I was crazy at the time. I stopped auditioning for adult theater because I just loved doing my kids theater. And so after Polka Dot Door, I started doing my own TV show and then touring with my own stage show as well as Polka Dot Door Live. So I've always worked with kids, and kids theater is what I love. So, that's why I was continuing to do the stuff at Roberta Bondar up until 3 years ago, actually.
Your TV show, Time to Read, right?
Yes.
I also have a full episode of Time to Read on my YouTube page as well.
Great.
So I love that show too. That show was great. I had forgotten about Time to Read until
I owe everything to Jed for that, because it was completely taken from reading stories on the Polka Dot Door. It was the same premise, except it was just reading stories. It was none of the other stuff. It was just a reading show, with subtitles at the bottom, trying to teach kids how to read. And it won awards for YTV at some of the smaller market things.
The theme song to Time to Read stuck in my head. The second I heard that song again, it just unlocked a memory.
Good.
And I'm like, I remember this. I was singing along with it, like I was singing it like 5 minutes.
That's great. Good.
But
that was fun. But I owe that all to Polka Dot Door because it was just straight from that.
Now
I've been very lucky.
Do you guys remember where you met, the two of you?
I met at a rehearsal for that stage show that he's talking about.
Oh, that's where you guys met.
Yes, before he ever started producing the Polka Dot Door.
Wow. Now I know Jed doesn't really have to worry about this too much, but Cindy, you're very well known. You were on TV for God knows how long. Do you ever get recognized?
I used to a lot. I don't anymore. It's not, because unfortunately, the kids that watch me have now had their kids. So I had 2 full generations that were terrific. Now, because it hasn't been on for like a full generation, they don't really even know what it is, which is really sad. I mean, they don't even know what polkaroo is anymore. But I get the grown-ups that still come up and say hi, but not as much. I had my 10 minutes though, 15 minutes, whatever they call it, of fame. I'd be going to weird places and getting asked for autographs and things. It was fun. I never cared about that stuff though. It's the kids that I liked. So,
well, you guys have been. I had a whole bunch of questions here to ask, but I'm sitting here in awe.
Well, I'm so glad to see Jed. I mean, I haven't seen him for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you this. I mean, I have to tell Kevin this story. This is really cute.
I love all stories.
We got along so great. We always got along great. And the very last show, we made a pact, which was really funny because neither of us were married at that point. And we said, if we get to 65, we should just get married. And I think we sent each other an email when we both turned 65 and said, "Hello, I'm married. Are you?" I said, "No, as a matter of fact, yes, I am." We didn't see each other for 20 years, but I thought that was a great pact to do.
Now, do you think a show like Polka Dot Door, I think I've asked this before, but do you think a show like Polka Dot Door would work now? Do you think it would work?
Well,
Would it
in an ideal world, I think it would. I'm no longer really paying attention to what's on TV for kids at this point, but
you're not missing.
I think I liked Polka Dot Door, and I liked the other shows I did around that time because they were people. Mm-hmm. So what you saw was how people interacted with each other.
Right.
Kind of in the real world and in real time. So, a lot of people, we were also told that people who were immigrants to Canada would watch Polka Dot Door because the language was so simple, they could learn English by listening to how people, everyone talked back and forth very clearly.
Absolutely.
Also, we were also modeling for any kid watching sort of just social behavior in a way, just the simple things like please and thank you, and could you do this or how, and so that was all going on. And I really think there's a real value for kids seeing older people acting that way and doing that. And everyone loves animation. I loved animation too, but I felt the live angle started to get lost.
Yeah.
To animation. I think that is a loss. I think there is still a place for a show like Polka Dot Door. I've mentioned this to Kevin before, and Cindy's probably heard it too, but people would come up to me sometimes and they'd be told, "Oh, well, he produces Polka Dot Door at a party or somewhere," and they'd say, "Oh, Polka Dot Door. Gosh, that show is so slow. I can't even watch that show." And I said, "Yeah, well, because it's for 2 to 5-year-olds.
Good. Yes.
It's not for you.
That's right.
We're not trying to keep you amused, and there's a reason. There's a reason that parents felt so secure with Polka Dot Door and with the cast and everything else we were doing, that they would let their children sit and watch, because the show came on just sort of before around dinner time. So if they were preparing dinner, we'll say, the kids would be allowed to sit and watch without the parent having to monitor what's going on. And I remember somebody wrote an article about Polka Dot Door, sort of, I don't know when it was, in the late 80s or something, and comparing it to Sesame Street, which Sesame Street just revolutionized children's television,
right.
And everybody really started copying Sesame Street's model. And one of their things was they were actually writing so adults would be entertained.
Yes.
They were writing for households where they felt adults would control the television. And so they wanted to make sure they would watch for the kids. But the guy that was writing the article was in the Star. I think I still have it somewhere, actually, said that he, like most adults, thought that, Sesame Street was funny and fun and Polka Dot Door was just kind of a little slow and sleepy. But he said the fact of it was his child, when he watched Sesame Street, it was like just feeding him sugar.
Yes.
There was never a segment longer than 3 minutes, I think. And in the pace and the music and the colors and the things just coming at you sort of hyped the child up. He said he was amazed to find when his children watched Polka Dot Door, they would focus. Each of our segments was roughly 5 minutes long, you know, more or less. They could focus for half an hour.
Yes.
Follow the show and retain what had been in the show.
Sure. And they had time to do the things with the hosts. I mean, one of the things that we did, Kevin, as you recall, is we would say, now you try this, or maybe you can do this. And I mean, we took the time to let them be involved with the show. And I agree 100%. I mean, they got so fast.
So, okay. So I said before, I have a question from a fan. Earlier this week, I only got one, unfortunately, but earlier this week, I asked the fans on our Instagram page, today's podcast 2022, if there was a question for Cindy, and she asked. Her name is Unicorn Appreciator 2018. That's her name.
Okay.
She has asked, I'd like to know which episode was her favorite to film.
I will tell you. It's the one where we sang By the Sea, and I was working with Garth, who's went on to do with the Nylons. Mm-hmm. And we sang that song, By the Sea, by the sea, by the wonderful sea. And we had the hats, and we did the whole number from Broadway. And Garth was an incredible singer. I mean, he was really good. And I'm trying to keep up with him. I'm trying to hold my own against this incredible singer from the Nylons. And do you remember this, Jed? I just sort of disappeared out of the picture. I tripped and I went down on my knees and I'm carrying on because I didn't know whether I'd still be on the camera or not. And it was just Garth, and they just kept going. They didn't even care that I wasn't in the shot anymore, but it was the funniest thing I've ever done. That was my favorite.
Wow, that's a really good answer. I like that. I think I actually have a clip of that I'm going to while you're talking, I'll put that over top of it, so as people know what you're talking about. Now, I know this is we're going to talk about. Is it okay to talk about Dennis a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah. How was he? Like, I remember him from the Polka Dot Door, but I also remember him. He had a guest spot on the Elephant Show as well, right? Okay. And plus many other things. What was Dennis like to work with?
Oh, listen, I've got to just say this right off the bat. He is my favorite performer of all time. I mean, he was just incredible, and he was a very good friend. I mean, he also performed at Stratford. I mean, he was so talented, but he was also very kind and very nice. I mean, I worked with him my very first 2 years. I worked with Dennis. He couldn't have been nicer, and he was just so good. I mean, he was so talented. I went to see him in Ain't Misbehavin' at the Ports of Call. That was a place in Toronto. I don't think it's there anymore, but he played the lead character in Ain't Misbehavin'. And then I saw it on Broadway, and I'm telling you, Dennis was better. I mean, he was 100 times better. He was just incredibly talented and very kind. And I have to say this story because it was really one of his proudest things. I'm sure if anybody ever talks to Gloria Rubin, she was his sister. Have you ever heard from Gloria Rubin? Anybody?
We tried to get a hold of her.
Yeah.
She didn't answer.
Well, she may be living in LA. I'm not sure. But anyway, she was his half sister. But he and I were the only show that was allowed to be shown in apartheid South Africa.
Oh, wow.
Because they had a black and a white host, and his and my segments were the only ones that were ever allowed to be shown. He got a fan letter that he showed me from a fan in South Africa saying they won't let anybody else's shows be on the air because there's a black person working with a white person except for you and Cindy Cook. And so he brought me the letter and he showed it to me, and he loved that. I mean, and that's pretty neat.
That is a really good story. You know, if any show should have been shown over there that needed, love and caring and things, Polka Dot Door will probably be the best one to show over there.
The last thing I want to add is the other thing about the Polka Dot Door, I think that has changed that Jed was mentioning is it was very kind. It was a very kind show. Everybody was kind to each other on the show. It reflected in the entire not just the cast, but the crew was all very kind. It was like family. And I mean, I think that came across in the shows, the kindness.
I think so too. I really do. Again, like, 30, 35 plus years later, we're still talking about it. I have one more question for you before we end this interview. Do you have, I know I've said this to Jed and I've said this to every single person. Do you have anything from the show? Did you take anything from set?
Oh, no.
No?
No. I've got my little toys and I've got my little Polkaroo doll that I got here. And no, I didn't, because I was working with the live show all the way through. And they changed the show after we left. Remember, what was the one right after? It was Polkaroo Play Along or something like that, where they had the giant stuffed characters.
That was Polka Dot Shorts.
Polka Dot Shorts came after Polka Dot Door, yeah, with all the toys coming to life. My belief is that the shows that are done for children are the most important television shows that are done. They're the only ones that really do stay with you for your whole life, and things that you learn, and sometimes things that you may fear, but they influence you. So we made a point of, whenever we're putting the shows together, we made a point of keeping that forefront in our minds, that this is the audience to us was the most important television audience there is, because an audience that is forming a worldview and is forming a way of approaching their life, through things that, we're not the only influence. I mean, their parents and friends and the rest.
Yes.
But it was a big influence. And I think it's a great testament to Cindy and, Carrie and all the cast, the whole cast.
The
years before even, and, the cast before me, for that matter.
Yeah.
That they've done that. And it has stayed with people, and they do remember it. And it's a positive thing. It's a good place in your memory and your mind.
Absolutely. I'm very, very proud of it. I mean, I have no regrets. It's certainly been wonderful to me. I mean, I just loved every minute. I can't believe it's been so long.
Yeah.
It's just been incredible. But I mean, it feels like yesterday, and it's still fun. Watching the shows, the only thing that bugs me is that I was so damn skinny. But we all were. I mean, you're still skinny. But I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's just, it was so much fun. I mean, it was just a riot. And I'm glad the kids were like that. I have to say one more thing, because
you can say anything you want.
It's so important. I mean, that's why I love performing for children, because you can reach them and you can really influence them. And that's all I've ever wanted to do. I mean, I know how important it is, because when I was a kid, music and movies and books were my escape, because I had terrible, terrible alcoholic parents. And I got through it by escaping into that kind of world. And I said, I'm doing this. And I did.
Well, yeah. I don't, you've probably been told this a million times before, but you did it, Cindy. You did it. You did it. You really did, because you influenced millions. Wow. That's a ginormous number. Millions upon millions of kids.
Well, they deserve it, though. I mean, every kid should have fun.
I'm one. Ashley is one. We're here with living proof that you did what you set out to do.
Well, it was fun.
So thank you guys very much.
Cut me out now. Thank you. You're welcome.
Well, thank you very, very much for doing what you've done, for being on Polka Dot Door, for doing those live shows. Thank you for being Cindy Cook
and Jed MacKay,
the entertainer. Well, I was getting to Jed. Thank you. Just thank you for creating our childhood. You influenced our childhood. Thank you very much.
My honor.
Thank you guys very much for listening and watching this episode of today's podcast. This is our season finale. This is our last episode in our Polka Dot Door series. Thank you guys very, very much, and stay tuned for more. Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Thank you. A biento.
Polka Dot Door, the Polka Dot Door. See you soon at the Polka Dot Door for songs and stories and so much more. Through the Polka Dot Door,